Hello, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to this week's episode of Couch Trip Therapy for Everyday Life. My name is Billy Courtwright. This is my very good friend, Eddie Reece, psychotherapist extraordinaire. We'll be spending the next 45 to 60 minutes with you talking about a topic that it actually surprised us that in the almost 20 episodes we have recorded till this date, we've yet to title an episode or focus an entire episode on the topic that we're going to discuss today. And it's kind of surprising because today's topic is anger and anger's evil twin, rage. Those are my words, not Eddie's. He didn't say that. He's probably having some judgment over that term right now. I don't know. We'll find out. But the way I think of it as a father of two young spirited boys, I don't see a lot of anger. I tend to see what I would perceive as rage. And I think we'll talk about that. Eddie will talk likely about early on in his career when anger management was, more prevalent in his practice. I think any of us would likely know someone who perhaps court ordered or maybe for some other reason has been forced to undergo anger management. I know as a sports fan, I hear about athletes all the time sidestepping what their organization would deem as appropriate behavior. And oftentimes the players union will recommend that the team finance anger management, sensitivity training. We're going to talk about that. So Eddie, I guess my first question to you is, why would someone have anger management adjudicated, so to say, and why do people suffer from anger management, and is that even an appropriate term? And then after we get through the anger part of this discussion, I'm very curious to know the difference between anger and rage. So Eddie, what's anger all about?
Yeah, we can sort of start there. If folks are talking about anger management, my reply is something along the lines of anger management doesn't work because the folks who are in an anger management class don't have a problem with anger so much. Their problem with anger is that they don't know how to express it. They actually don't express it really at all. What's being expressed is rage, and it was a huge piece of my development as a therapist when I learned the difference between anger and rage. And if I remember correctly, I read an article written by a guy named Michael Lewis, who is a therapist, and I've gone back trying to find that article that I read, and I can't find it. But he wrote about the difference, and that's where I got it from. Anger is a hopeful emotion. Anger says, I don't like the way things are here, and I have hope that it can change. I believe I have some power, influence, ability to change it. And that's the approach I'm going to take. Rage says, I'm completely hopeless, helpless, powerless here. I don't see this ever being any different. I don't see the other changing in any way, shape, or form. Hopeless, and I'm hopeless, I'm helpless, and I'm powerless. I can't do anything about that. And so rage is a reaction to feeling hopeless, helpless, and powerless. That goes back to what we've mentioned a number of times here, how your nervous system works. That the survival part of our nervous system sees feeling hopeless, helpless, and powerless as the way to die. So if something is threatening me, attacking me, and I'm feeling hopeless, helpless, and powerless, and that means I'm going to be eaten. That's not good. So I'm going to unleash what I'm calling rage, which is the attempt to overpower. I have to get rid of this threat. I have to make sure that I get rid of it so that I don't die. And one of the problems people have with the idea of what rage is that they think it's bigger anger, but that's not it at all. Rage can be very small. Rage can be as small as rolling your eyes. Somebody says or does something, and you're like, if you add words to that, it's, oh gosh, they're never going to get it. This is hopeless. There's nothing I can do about this. Help me. And that's that feeling. And what is being expressed there is rage. It's a form of contempt for the other. If somebody is if you're in a discussion with somebody and they go, oh, yeah, it's sort of like, not that again. Here we go.
Right.
Lord. So you're being put down. It's an attempt to overpower you. You're an idiot. There's something wrong with you. This is never going to be any different. Anger would say, what you just said this, you just did this, and that makes me mad. I'm angry about that. I don't like it. And I want it to change. Okay. Both approaches says, I want this to change. Look at the difference. The difference in rage is, I'm going to overpower you. I'm not going to give you a chance to have any say-so in it. Anger says, I'm not going to overpower you. I'm going to carry on a discussion. We're going to talk about what's going on here and what, our hopes and dreams of the future around this would be. And I want to work that out. And I had a colleague that we were talking about this, and she came up with a great way to tell the difference. She said, if somebody can add "you stupid idiot, you" to whatever you think or say or feel in that moment, then it's rage. So rage is shaming.
Mhm.
Rage is saying, you stupid idiot, I'm just going to try to destroy this. And so I appreciate D. Wagner's the colleague that gave me that. And I use it all the time, that you want to, first of all, learn what I'm doing here is either anger or rage. I want to learn the difference. And then rage, you want to stop any and all the time, other than if someone is literally threatening your life. You certainly want to rage, you want to overpower them. But you can actually, if you're really highly developed, you can actually overpower somebody without wanting to shame them, looking at them as less than. That's martial arts. Somebody's attacking you and you help them to the ground. I'm not going to engage in a fight with you. I got no beef with you. I don't want to kill you as another human being. But I'm going to help you to the ground. So that's sort of a basic, quick teaching
it's
on
incredibly
what it is.
Yeah. And so we talked off air a minute, and what I suspected was rage as it pertains to some recent behavior from our boys, 10 and 8. We're going back to school here in North Fulton County of Georgia, just north of Atlanta. And as you can imagine, 10 and 8-year-olds aren't tremendously excited to get back into the routine that is school. And my wife and I are doing our best to create boundaries that we feel are going to be best suited for the well raising of our boys, right, wrong, or indifferent. We're doing some things, and the boundaries are just not being met with a lot of
shocking
favorability. As a matter of fact, I would say that they're being met with a lot of hopeless, helpless, and contempt, and eye rolling, and powerlessness. Because I'm seeing a lot of what you just described, and it makes a lot of sense. So in the moments that we're taking their pleasure away, whether it's a video game or YouTube or whatever it is, we're essentially rendering them powerless to continue whatever activity they'd like to continue. And I don't feel so bad about it. But I look at that behavior, the eye rolling, the rage. My wife, it drives her crazy. She takes it as disrespectful, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just, I think it genuinely hurts her heart because she just wants
Sure.
so much for these boys, and it's depriving her of any satisfaction whatsoever about being a good mother, which is probably a story for another day. But what do we do in that situation? I mean, I've been trying to rationalize it,
Yeah.
but that's, you can imagine that's not going
Yeah.
over too well.
Um, well, when we're children, we are hopeless, helpless, powerless. I mean, we're not in charge. Um, and what's supposed to happen developmentally is we're supposed to be sort of ushered through, taught through our childhood, being given bits and pieces of our own power, our own independence. And that's supposed to be given out, as things, your maturity dictates, so that you learn that I do have some influence. I do have some power in some situations and some I don't, which is a major life lesson if you want to be mentally and emotionally healthy. That's the serenity prayer from 12 step, to grant me the ability to tell the difference between what I got power over and what I don't. So to teach your children that I, I get it. You don't have a say so. If somebody told me I didn't have a say so about something I want to do, I wouldn't be happy either. I don't blame you. Um, and you can be as mad at me as you want to be. Right? And I'm going to teach you about how to be mad rather than raging at me and trying to overpower me, because you're not going to overpower. That's not going to happen. The video games will stop at this time, and there's not a thing you can do about it. Right? And it would make all the sense in the world to me that you would be angry with me about that because you're not getting what you want. Right? And one of the things that's going to make any of us angry is I'm not getting what I want, and I want it. Okay, so and there's a movie. This is the way my memory works. I have little snapshots of things. I have a snapshot of this movie scene. Burt Reynolds was in it, and I think he's dating a teacher. I can't remember who the female lead is right offhand, but she's talking about teaching her students to be angry because she was saying something along this line to Bert's character. And she says, I teach them to be angry. And he goes, well, what do you do? She's sitting down and she's got her feet on the floor and she says, I make a fist and I shake my fists and I stomp the floor and I go, ah! And it's a great move. I mean, just right now, me doing that, there's this like, oh, it expels the energy that your nervous system is building up to overpower.
That's powerful.
And so you're running in a sense, you're fighting, you're making noises, you're attacking, but there's no you stupid idiot you in it.
Right.
Okay. So you teach your children to be angry. So when you're really mad, and you can do that as long as you want, you can do it as loudly as you want. I got no problem with it. And then here's another big lesson if you teach your children this, because most of us do not learn this, and it causes us to become incredibly codependent, that you can be as angry as you want with me. Okay? And I will stay right here with you.
Wow.
I'm going to sit right here because I define codependency as I will do any and everything to make sure no one is ever. And then there's a big drop down menu. Mad at me, leaves me, talks bad about me, hates me, whatever. And the reason we work so tirelessly in a codependent way to make sure these things never happened is because that's what happened in our upbringing. Um, if I got mad, right, I don't want to play video games, mom or dad would go, too bad, and walk off. So I don't want anybody to ever leave me, right? Or they would just knock the crap out of you. I don't want anybody to ever hurt me. Right? Or they would tell you to shut up, and so I don't want anybody to yell at me. So if you teach your children, be as angry as you want. You can be angry with me because I'm the one that's doing this to you. I'm not going anywhere. And so let it rip. And no one can do this for very long.
Right.
You're going to wear yourself out. So have at it. So you teach people to be angry.
This is incredibly helpful. I can only imagine what our audience is thinking. Ladies and gentlemen, don't worry about all the notes you could possibly take. We're going to link, anything linkable will be in the show notes as well as.
Yeah, I've got a blog post, really long blog post on my website about this. You can look up.
Incredibly helpful, and I'm actually looking forward to having a conversation, and because it feels empowering to, and I guess it would, because if they're demonstrating powerlessness, and then to empower them to be with their emotions in that moment and expel that energy and have some independence over their behavior in that moment. And you know what? I'm not going anywhere, and I get it. I get it. You're feeling powerless because you are. It's just such a counterintuitive approach. And even the demeanor in which you went through that conversation is not exactly how I would typically be, which is
no, of course not. Because the parents are raging because they're feeling threatened.
Yes.
In that moment. And it's, you call it a power struggle. Who is going to win this? And so most of us, this kind of goes back to our conversation about striving. We want to win. We don't want to share power with the other. We want to overpower. There's nothing in our culture about how great it is that you can finish second. The Buffalo Bills get beat up because they finished second an awful lot of times in the Super Bowl.
4 years in a row.
Yeah. So, it's like, wow, to go, oh my gosh, you finished second. You made it to 4 Super Bowls in a row. Holy cow, that is awesome. Yeah, and then we lost them all, Yeah, but still. Yeah. But our culture doesn't do that. They go, oh, losers, Buffalo Bills. Yeah. First thing comes to mind. Yeah. So you're teaching your children, we're going to share this moment, that I'm going to be there with you. It very much is how life works. You can be mad at me. I'll sit here with you. You can express your anger. I'll listen to it, and you still will not get to play video games at the end of all that.
Yeah. Wow. That's, like I said, that's very helpful. I think it's appropriate then we pivot. For the parents out there, that was undoubtedly helpful. You've just armed yourself with all kinds of ways to navigate what is typically a stressful environment, which in the Court House has been happening a little bit more normal lately because of the inherent structure and boundaries that young children will rebel against when they go from the free spirited and real freedom of summer to the more structured, more disciplined period of the school year. So that's to be expected. And Eddie, in a very eloquent and brilliant way, and I, on behalf of the audience, will express sincere gratitude, because I can't wait to use that conversation and that tone and that curiosity, compassion, and kindness to really recognize and validate, hey, it's okay to be angry, and I'm going to be here with you. And it's okay that you're angry with me. I don't take it personally.
Mm-hmm.
Being told you can't do what you want to do has to be aggravating. I get it. Be angry.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. So I'm going to practice that.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's now move to the adults in the room, the adults that are dealing with anger and rage with other adults, likely. This could happen at work with colleagues. It could happen with those of which you're asked or required to lead in a setting where frustration, anger, and rage can happen. It happens within relationships, at least mine, all the time. So, I love my wife dearly. I want very much to be calm, cool, and collected. But, with that love comes passion. With that passion comes anger, and with that anger can come some rage. And I'm guilty. I'm a spirited, passionate individual that feels a lot of things at a lot of different times. And so how is it different? How is it the same to dealing with children, and then how is it different?
Yeah. Well, it's the same in one of the lessons that all of this can teach you is, first of all, how to be angry. Being angry is an antidote to rage. Another antidote to rage that you're going to have to utilize a lot in your life is how to feel hopeless, helpless, and powerless and not react. Because there's a lot more in our lives that we're hopeless, helpless, and powerless again. And coming from an existential point of view, that is the crux of existentialism. How do you deal with the hopeless, helpless, powerlessness of your own mortality? Because it's coming and there's not a thing you can do about it. And being old now, boy, I mean, it sounds more like a freight train than a distant rumbling. It's getting louder because it's getting closer. So how do you face something that you're completely hopeless, helpless, and powerless about, that you would rather not have happen? And gosh, you can rattle off a big long list of things today and tomorrow and the next day that are going to meet that criteria. And how do you approach that with kindness and compassion and an understanding and a gentleness about it? And in a sense, hold your own hand or the hand of another, which is what happens in hospice work, sitting with the dying. I just think it's one of the greatest things anybody can do for anybody else. To sit and hold their hand and go, there's nothing I can do about this. There's nothing you can do about it. It's going to happen. And I'm going to sit here with you throughout the whole thing. You're not going to be alone. And to be able to do that for ourselves is huge. I mean, huge. And whether a client comes to me asking for that or not, nobody ever really has, they're going to wind up with that because you can't function well if you don't have some degree of that ability. And most of us go, oh, I don't have a problem with that. I just go, oh, well, whatever. It is what it is. But you always do that with a shoulder shrug, which means I'm just pretending it isn't really here.
Right.
And that's not going to work.
I'm struck by the fact that you began down that conversation with anger and rage, but you focused on helpless, hopeless, and powerlessness. And then powerlessness was clearly the overarching dominant thought. And that powerlessness immediately turned to gentleness, your word, kindness,
Hmm.
compassion, togetherness, acknowledgement, validation, support. So I'm curious,
Right.
from a layperson, we're dealing with anger and rage, which we've already acknowledged and now agree is the manifestation of this helpless, hopeless, and powerlessness. You acknowledge that at your age and stage of life, there's a more of a reckoning, so to speak, of with this sense of mortality. And that can happen at any time of life, but it's clearly going to
Hmm.
happen more to you as you age. But you didn't stay on the anger side or the powerlessness side so much as you pivoted to, you did say this is something you need to learn to do yourself, hold your own hand. But what I heard
Hmm.
you say was, you are there for these people. You want to be there. You acknowledge that people
Yeah.
in hospice are there for those people. So for those people that are angry and enraged and having difficulty holding their own hand, or maybe they're lonely. And it's, I'm just struck by the idea that I am married with children, thinking of how do I deal with the anger and rage I have towards my spouse or my coworker or my colleagues. And the reality is, I'm so blessed, so blessed to even have such a spirited emotion towards someone who is going to be
Hmm.
there
Oh
when I'm
yeah.
when that
Yeah. I
emotion
mean,
subsides.
yeah, that's the idea of practicing gratitude, and to be grateful for all things, which is a tough concept, at least for me. But to, you know, be grateful that you do have these people in your life who drive you nuts. And what would it be like if they weren't there? Reminds me of a story I heard about a woman whose husband snored and how she, complained about that endlessly and tried to get him to do something about it. And after he died, telling a friend I would give anything to hear him snore again, you know, um, it'd be great to have her here and, you know, piss me off, you know, do that thing, whatever it is. So there's all sorts of ways to maneuver yourself toward taking this stance of I am truly hopeless, helpless, and powerless about this. And any attempt you make when you really are hopeless, helpless, and powerless is somehow going to fall short, I think, in what we hope happens. And I think aging is a great example of how we go out and exercise, eat healthy. There's a t-shirt I saw once that said, eat right, exercise, die anyway. So when we go out and I'm gonna work out, I'm gonna eat really healthy, I'm gonna do this. Why? I want to live longer. Do you really? You know, what does living longer look like in reality? Um, and that's really saying, I want to push away feeling hopeless and helpless and powerless about my own mortality. That's what I think most people are actually doing when they take on some sort of program that's going to better themselves in that regard. I want to push that away. I don't want to face it yet. Um, but again, back to existentialism, back to, I really learned this very well studying Native American culture of walking with death. Walk with your own death every day, all day long. You know, um, Learn to embrace that hopeless, helpless powerlessness. I think that's the key to finding preciousness in today and what you have now. It helps you feel grateful for everything. Feel grateful for your aches and pains and ailments. I mean, that's better than you don't have them by being dead. So the yeah, that's the hopeless, helpless, powerless thing really is kind of where this whole discussion and exploration of anger and rage comes from. Um, Learn to be angry, learn to sit with your helpless, and powerless. Those are the two keys to reducing, if not eliminating, your rage. You know, you're never going to eliminate it. I mean, I'm still going to go, and you stupid idiot, you. Um,
Yeah, but the
but
reality is, I mean, for me personally, I don't feel like the word and the meaning are they're different now for me. If you'd have asked me at the beginning,
what's different?
well, I would have thought I feel much more compassion. I feel much more uh, I, I don't like I think I was like guilty of meeting rage with rage, in
Hmm.
meeting anger with anger, and there's that kind of that opposite forces, and just kind of who's going to win out,
Oh
so to
yeah,
speak, and
yeah.
now I'm going to have the image in my mind of the perspective of the what you just so beautifully articulated, which is through the lens of all kinds of things. And this is likely a result of the fact that you and I talk every week for over an hour, but I'm
Hmm.
starting to default to the kindness dialogue. I'm starting to default
Yeah.
to seek first to understand. And now I don't view rage as anger's evil twin. I really don't. As a matter of fact, it's preferred. Uh,
Well, I mean, Ray, they're they're not related, and that's problem number one. Anger and rage, they're not related. They're not anything like the other. Anger is hopeful, helpful, it gives you a sense of power, influence, and there's no shame involved. And rage is the opposite of that. If you want to look for how they're related, rage is I'm going to overpower, I'm going to
yeah,
destroy you, I'm going to get
right.
rid of you. You're seen as a threat to my existence kind
Yeah.
of approach. And
And just
um
a minute ago, you brought up the Serenity Prayer. You brought up 12 steps in it. We've talked about recovery in the past, and I remember distinctly for some really special people in my life who are now handling recovery quite well. There was this acknowledgement of powerlessness over
mhm.
drugs and alcohol,
Right.
and that's the word that was used.
That
Powerlessness.
it is the word. And I my one kind of with step one, that I saw that I was powerless over, drugs, alcohol, whatever the addiction is. I would like for that to be written, I by myself am powerless, but with other people I'm not.
So true.
And so that gives you that sense that I need to reach out. And to me, that's what step one really says, that by myself, I'm powerless.
And that's an important
And
distinction.
and I think it's a really important distinction. And so we can tie this to our conversation in that anger says, I'm going to reach out. I want to connect with you around this thing that makes me do this. I don't like it. I want it to be different. Um, I want it to stop or whatever. Um, and that I'm going to join with you to create some way to bring that about, whether it be the thing you do that I want to stop, or that you stop it, or maybe it is that I find something within myself that isn't so triggered by it. Maybe I find out, oh, that's sort of like what happened to me when I was growing up, and that reminds me of that. And so I want to get rid of that, but I need to deal with all the emotions around that time in my life rather than try to get you to stop this. And then I do that, and the more I do that, the less kind of I feel toward you. And that's what happens, to me all day long, when I go, "Arr," and at myself or something, and then I go, you know, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, because in that is a you stupid idiot, you. And so I need to apologize for that, take that
Yeah.
back, join back with the part that I'm mad at, raging at. And then, yeah, the other side goes, yeah, I don't like that either. Hey, me neither. Okay, well, let's change it.
So Eddie, this has been incredibly powerful, and I'd like to end on this question. It might take a few minutes to get through it, but what might someone be feeling, witnessing, experiencing outside of a judge or an employer saying you need anger management?
Mhm.
And I agree. The term itself kind of bothers me, because
Yeah.
we're not. How about some anger understanding?
Well,
um,
I call it rage elimination,
yeah, yeah.
rage reduction,
So, so,
rage reduction class.
so for those listening and viewing who might feel angry, frustrated, powerless, what self examination or audit might we do in preparation for seeking out a therapist like you to
Mm.
have the hand held or to be guided through a
Yeah.
process? Because it sounds like what you do with your patients is nothing short of miraculous, in my opinion, but that's me. But it really, I'm just overwhelmed with how helpful just the context of this has been. I can only imagine what, continuous treatment could uncover and could deliver. So what might someone do or recognize,
Yeah.
or what symptoms might they come across where you might recommend reaching out to a therapist like yourself?
Well, again, I'm going to save your breathing. You're experiencing this. I mean, our culture is so full of rage. If you're experiencing anger, good for you. You don't need my help. Um, and if you're expressing your anger and there's no you stupid idiot you, then hey, you're doing great. It's the raging that we do at others but again, I primarily wind up focusing on the rage toward the self. Oh God, that was so stupid, or wow, what is wrong with me? You stupid idiot, you. Um, that's the most damaging thing. I've said this to so many clients. It's like, yeah, your parents did a number on you. Yeah, the people that took care of you really, really hurt you in horrible ways. And if they're a certain age, it's like, but you've been away from those people a lot longer than you were with them. And you're the one doing the damage. And so that's where the focus has to go. It's not like we're going to not pay any attention to your childhood, but we've got to pay a lot of attention to your present day life and how you treat yourself, to where you can pull yourself out of the rage and come back to the kindness dialogue, being kind to yourself, being compassionate, being patient. Love is patient and kind. Those are the first two words in the hymn. Um, so to be patient with yourself, and yeah, this is going to take a while, or this will never be gone. I'm not going to stop raging because I'm going to have that instinctual drive to look for a threat and get rid of it. And things are going to hit me as a threat because they did for so long. It's not going to stop. That's not the goal. To be perfect is not the goal. It's to correct yourself. That's the goal.
That is the goal. Ladies and gentlemen, if we had a greatest hits, this would be on it. We just spent the last 45 minutes talking about anger and rage. I'll say it, my favorite episode up until now had been titled Realm of the Hungry Ghost. There's some similarities in these two. Recovery was touched on with both. In those issues touched me personally. So I don't think it's unusual that I'm so heart driven towards understanding in this regard, because I think it makes me a better person. and I've got issues too, as we all do. But
Mm.
the reality is, hearing Eddie talk about anger and rage in such a compassionate, patient, curious, kind tone, which is so on brand, Mr. Reece, it just gives me, I just feel peace. I feel contentment. I feel oxytocin running all over my body right now. And I feel that a lot when we talk. I've told you that. It's just like it's just your tone. It's a gift. You have this way of calming individuals, and it's a mirroring. You know, you're calm, so I'm calm. And
Right.
the more I hear you talk, the more I feel oxytocin coming through my body. And for those that don't know that feeling, talk to a woman who's ever nursed a child, and she'll tell you what it's like. And if you still don't know what it's like, go pet a dog for about 10 straight minutes. And you'll form an oxytocin bond with that animal. And if you haven't fallen asleep at the end of the 10 minutes, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about right now. All that to say, we'll talk about hormones and oxytocin, norepinephrine, and epinephrine in future episodes, because the chemicals of the body are just as cool as the electrical connections that go on. So, ladies and gentlemen, this has been an outstanding, in my opinion, humble opinion as it is, episode of Couch Trip Therapy for Everyday Life. Eddie, any final words for our audience as we impress upon them how important it is to seek out some professional help?
Just, do your best to be kind. Do your best to bring yourself back. There's so much in our culture, and we've touched on this before, that's designed to make you mad, designed to shame you in some way, shape, or form, which is gonna trigger that helpless feeling, and marketers want you to buy something to get rid of it. To pull yourself back from that, regulate your nervous system, which is the other thing when you're facing that desire to rage. Regulate that nervous system so that you can find the kindness and the compassion for yourself or for somebody else. Use this one for the person that cuts you off in traffic. Maybe they have to go to the bathroom. Maybe they just got to call their loved ones in the hospital. Grant them that. Do the best you can to do that. And if you can't, then go get help and make sure that the therapist, I've seen, boy, I say this so much, I kind of get tired of hearing it. Make sure that therapist has had a whole lot of their own therapy, because that's how they're able to come across the way that I can come across at times with people, to help them regulate. There's co-regulation going on. We're herd animals. I want you to feel the sense there are no threats here.
It's brilliant advice. It's I have heard you say on numerous occasions that if you're vetting a therapist, that's a question that need be asked, and that's great. I think those are the little Eddieisms that people get if they've listened to us for more than one or two episodes, and I think that's really empowering too. So, on behalf of our listening and viewing audience, Eddie, let me just again express sincere gratitude for the kindness, the time, the generosity of wisdom and experience and heart set that you put forth across the podcast and the YouTube show, because I, for one, enjoy it, and I hope the world does too. So,
ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you helping me out here, Billy.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. I wouldn't do it if I didn't love it, and I do. Ladies and gentlemen, if any of this resonated with you, if you know someone that might benefit from hearing Eddie, wax poetic about some of the things that are probably important to these people, please introduce them to the podcast. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, you can hit us in the comments below. You can like and subscribe to the channel, and you can email us at any time, Eddie at CouchTrip or Billy at CouchTrip.co. And we would love the opportunity to read your question on air. And if not, that's fine too. We'll request permission before we did that. But I think it's important that we start a dialogue with our audience to make sure that we're giving you what you need at a time that you need it so much. So with that said, this has been an episode of Couch Trip Therapy for Everyday Life. I'm Billy Courtwright. That's Eddie Reece. And we thank you once again and can't wait to talk to you next week.
Thanks, Billy.
Bye-bye.
See you guys.
Bye.